So we'll go ahead and start today's session off. So thanks again, everyone, for joining today's webinar. My name is Marley Long, and I'll go ahead and get things kicked off. Today we'll be covering managing your Office 365 migration with analytics. And the goal of this presentation is that you will walk away with some key insights and metrics that you can use to further improve your SharePoint or Office 365 migration. And of course, with some helpful tips and actions that you can utilize to set your Office 365 improvement plan into motion. So just a little bit of webinar housekeeping. So this webinar is being recorded, so if you do want to share this with a colleague in the next few days, we'll go ahead and send an email to everyone who signed up with the recording as well. You can connect to us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @CardioLog. And of course, if you have any questions, we'll leave some time towards the end of the session today, and you can send your questions through the questions box within the GoToWebinar panel. In regards for today's webinar agenda, we'll start out with just a very short introduction. We'll talk a little bit about InfLock, who we are and what we do, and then we'll jump into a presentation with some tips and the best metrics that you can use to monitor your migration before, during, and after. And again, as I mentioned at the end, we'll take some Q&A, but if you have any questions, of course you can send them throughout the presentation as well. Just wanted to drop a quick note in case anyone will be attending Microsoft Ignite. Our team will be there, so if you'd like to meet at Ignite, see a demo in live action, or simply just come to our booth to talk about analytics, we'll be there. So again, if you want to send us a quick chat, we can go ahead and schedule a time to meet at Ignite as well. So let's start out with just a brief introduction. InfLock has been around for about 12 years now, since 2005. We're based out of Boston, and over the past 12 years we've been focused on analytics designed for SharePoint and now Office 365. Our flagship solution is CardioLog Analytics. It's built specifically for internal platforms, including all versions of SharePoint from 2007 to 2016, as well as SharePoint Online and Office 365. We can also track third-party tools like Yammer, Citrion, CRM tools, and more. And our solution is available both as an on-prem as well as a SaaS-based version on Power BI. Our goal is to help our customers constantly improve SharePoint based on how it's being used. So there are three main pillars that we focus in on when we talk about analytics with our customers. So the first is to monitor, which is tracking the usage within SharePoint. The second is actually engaging those users, so asking them what their needs are, what their pain points are, and essentially what's not working for them. And then finally, the most important pillar is to enhance. And we really want to make sure that we're constantly improving SharePoint based on these pillars. And the idea is to have actionable metrics, which will really allow us to constantly make the portal more productive and more efficient for the users. So why do we need analytics when talking about a SharePoint migration? I'm sure some of you have asked this question before. Maybe some of you have used analytics during a migration. And the point is that I really wanted to take this presentation to kind of give some perspective and really break down each process during a migration and really show you which reports can really help you at each step. So the key here is that you can really only manage what you can measure. So only can you really know what's going on during a SharePoint migration, define if the deployment was even successful at all, and measure if people are using it and adoption is actually increasing, is by being able to measure what's going on. And that's really the end goal that we work with our customers on. So how can we measure the deployment, analyze it, and really ensure success through all steps of the migration process. And by leveraging analytics, you can actually find out whether your portal is performing as expected and whether it's really truly providing value to your organization. And if you've already decided to take the big step of migration from one version to SharePoint to the next, perhaps from 2013 to online, it only makes sense to deploy analytics during this process. So perhaps you've taken on, again, SharePoint Online. As daunting as this may seem at first, there are really a variety of ways to manage and take control of this process, which I'll show you in just a few minutes. Something really important also that I want to take a moment to talk about is that with any migration, we should really remember the small steps. So there may be this big picture of what you want to do, how you want to push a migration forward, and analytics are really the small steps, and they all compile to create this larger picture in which organizations can base their decisions off of. I also want to mention this idea of setting KPIs. So maybe some of you are more familiar with this term than others. Sometimes organizations may have difficulty determining what a successful migration is. So what are the right measurements that you should use? Determining the success of a migration is based on the KPIs that your organization sets forth when you begin your migration process. So when you're really in that planning stage, setting KPIs are super important. So some examples of setting those KPIs can be that perhaps 90% of end users have migrated to the new portal by January 1st. Or maybe a specific number of page views per week per department. Or even 80% of end users are active on social platforms like Yammer, Citrion, or SharePoint Social. And all of these metrics should be included in the success of an overall migration. So breaking these metrics down makes analyzing successes and failures more actionable and really more measurable. Another thing I wanted to mention is that all SharePoint projects can be challenging, but typically the product works. A key challenge is really poor planning. So I'll show you how you can plan better. Of course, this can be through a number of ways, with training, adoption, engagement, and again, these are all business problems, not necessarily SharePoint problems. So with these metrics that I'll show you before, during, and after, these are metrics that you can really go and show to leadership that these are those very important data points that you can really focus in on to make a successful migration. So some of the challenges that you can see here were more internal, so they weren't even related to SharePoint at all in terms of unsuccessful migrations. So for example, senior management didn't endorse the product, users weren't trained, or there was poor planning. So now I'm going to jump just a little bit into CardioLog Analytics just to give you a better idea of what I'm talking about and how you can actually create and analyze these reports. And I also want to mention those 3 steps of a migration process. So just to put things in perspective, we're going to run through this demonstration by analyzing our before, our during, and our after. Okay, so let's go to our portal resources reports. So here you can see CardioLog Analytics SaaS, and this is an all-encompassing SaaS solution, and it's provided through Power BI, which you can see here, and it's a really powerful data visualization interface. I will mention that we also have an on-prem solution in case that's of interest to anyone, and we'd be happy to show you that in a separate session as well. But today we'll be focusing on CardioLog Analytics SaaS. CardioLog SaaS is hosted on Microsoft Azure servers, and it comes with a set of pre-made reports that we put together in a way that we think would be most beneficial to the users. And when we designed these reports, of course, the primary purpose was to provide the data, but we really wanted to take it one step further. So we built these reports in a way that inherently already help our users know how they should measure their business and portal goals. So for our purposes today, we're going to focus mainly on this portal resources report that you can see here, as well as various adoption reports. And these are all reports that you can use to improve your migration and help you get those insights that you need at the right times during your migration process. Now let's jump back into this context of our pre-migration stage. One of the most important steps to take before any migration initiative is to really clean up the portal sites, lists, and documents. Archiving or deleting unused content from the portal will ease the portal migration process and allow your organization to migrate only the content that is really needed. And you can use analytics to detect which pieces of content are not being used, and that really makes your cleanup and migration process easier. So there are a variety of reports that can be really useful during that pre-migration stage. So here we have our Portal Resources Overview Report, giving you a really big picture idea of what's going on in your portal in terms of your resources and can really assist you in supporting your migration. So here at the top you can see we have a few nice visuals. Here you can see your number of tree items, so that's 1,739, and your number of unused items as well, so 254. You can also filter over here on the right-hand side according to month or quarter specifically. So let's go ahead and filter by the month of February. And this is a really quick way to slice and dice your data. And it's a really nice feature of Power BI that once you select a specific date range that you'd like to filter for, all of the information will segment accordingly. So here you can see a few charts that let you drill down. So for example, here you can see your portal size chart. So here you can see everything from your 2013 farm to your SharePoint Online tenant. If you'd like to drill down, you can drill down into your SharePoint 2013 farm. Again, you can drill down into your team site. You can drill down into individual subsites. You can also drill down into lists or libraries and all the way down into blogs and microfeeds. You can also see your size by content type. So here you can see that documents are what take up your largest part of your portal. And that's really important when going through that portal cleanup process. And you kind of want to just look at this report and kind of have a big picture idea and say, okay, what part of my portal is taking up the most space right now? And right off the bat, I can see that the documents are taking up a huge amount of space. And then you can really dive into those documents and filter into them, drill down into your documents, and see what documents specifically are taking up the most space as well. And maybe these documents aren't relevant anymore, and we can simply archive them or delete them. Or maybe they are important to the organization, and we can actually leverage them and put them on more popular places within the portal to try to promote them. And I'll show you how you can dive a bit deeper into these documents and actually do that cleanup process in just a moment. You can also see some trends over time here at the bottom, showing you your content creation by size. And you can also see in a line graph as well. Now I'm going to move to our unused content report. And one of the most important steps to take before any migration initiative, like I've talked about before, is really to prepare and clean up your portal sites and documents. So archive and deleting those documents from the portal will really ease that migration process and really allow your organization to migrate only the content that is needed. So again, you can use analytics to detect which pieces of content are not being used, and that can really make your cleanup and migration process easier and can be particularly helpful during even a cutover migration process, especially if you'd like to get things done quickly and you're really looking for results. So we can actually see this information for an entire tracking period or even specific month like I mentioned before. So again, we can filter for the month of February. And here we can see that most of the size of the portal is again taken by documents here. And it's visualized in this pie chart as well as in this graph here. And we can see that most of the size of the portal, again, is coming from our team site. And if you hover over this widget, you can see exactly the content type, the number of page views, exactly what month it is, and the last page view date as well. So you can actually see, for example, if you want to take action and clean up your portal and really focus on these documents that are not being viewed and are very large and taking up a lot of space. So if we actually click here, we can see all of this information, and this is a really cool thing about the specific visual. It actually allows you to see how the data changes over time, so I'll show you right now. One second, I just had to unfilter it. And again, you can see how the data actually changes over time as it grows. And this is also an interesting way to kind of preempt what will your data creation look like over time in your new portal. So if you have an idea of how it looked in your previous portal, you can understand what your growth of the new portal will look like and really anticipate. So again, you can see how that content creation has evolved over time, whether it's building at a steady rate or perhaps if your portal is stagnant and there doesn't seem to be much activity in terms of building knowledge. So now I'm going to move on and we'll focus in on our most popular content within SharePoint. And that's what I mentioned before when I said that I can go in and take action and really do that portal cleanup. So here we have our page views table. So what kind of action can we take or what kind of value can this metric provide? So here you can see all of your most popular content within your portal or your highest number of page views. And once you know that what this content is most popular, you may want to link that content on your homepage or in the new portal. So if, for example, this list is really popular, instead of having people wasting a lot of time clicking through the portal and trying to find it, we can easily create these links and save people a lot of time because we know that these specific documents are most popular. So let's flip that around. So now we can actually see all of our inactive content. So here we can see that we had 0 page views, and whether it's sites, documents, pages, or more, all of that can be visualized within this table. And we can also filter by content type. So for example, if we only want to see documents in this table, then we can see all of our most popular and least popular documents, as well as sites, or anything else that you would like to segment for. And this is really where we can take action. So we can either get rid of these documents or any kind of content pieces that we have if they're unused. We can update them, or if they're updated already and we know that this information is vital to the organization, so let's better leverage this content so that people can access it if it's important to the organization. So of course we can place it on a team site or a home page depending on who's focused on this content, and then we can decide where we would like to place it. So that's the action that we can take really based on orphaned content. And besides that, we can see also the size of the content. So here we can see some content pieces that are very, very large. And again, we can see here that they have 0 page views. So it seems a bit silly to want to migrate these pieces of content that are taking up huge amount of space in the portal, but don't necessarily seem to be providing any kind of value. So it's really simple to just go in and kind of attack these pieces of content and say, again, we can see who the owner is as well. So, hey, Joe, you have 60 days to go in and either update this content, leverage this content somehow, or let me know if this content is old content, and I'll go ahead and delete it. And this can really help you speed up your migration process as well. I know that many of our customers come to us and share insights about how long their migration processes are taking. And while there are many factors, these small steps can really help in speeding up some aspects of the migration process, specifically as it relates to content. So it's very simple. You go in, you attack them one by one, these kind of problematic pieces of content, and it's a really nice way that you can just take immediate action and really start that portal cleanup process and try to manage your sprawl. So now I'm going to jump into the next step of our migration process, which is the during phase. So I'm going to navigate to our collaboration tool for just one moment, just to show you how easy it is to target your SharePoint users during a migration process, so you can really understand if they're adapting to the new portal and if they're finding what they're looking for. So this is CardioLog Engage. CardioLog Engage helps users find what they're looking for, or even targets them to ask them what they think about the new environment. So you can simply start a new campaign by clicking here. And here we have a number of templated campaigns, and essentially it's asking us what is our campaign's goal. So for a migration, we can ask users for their feedback. This is a really powerful way to collect insights on our users, really understand what the user experience is during a migration process, what they think of the new portal, or maybe if they think that there are certain items that are missing. So here we can select, we came up with a lot of pre-templated campaigns. So for example, we can ask users if they found what they were looking for, if they think that there's anything we should improve. So let's select that one. And now we can target who we think should receive this campaign. So for example, we can target our newbies, and I want to mention that CardioLog Engage is actually integrated fully with CardioLog Analytics SaaS. So it's a really powerful way to take those insights and target users based upon the insights that we found with CardioLog Analytics. So for example, you can actually see here that we can actually understand that there are 500 newbies, and these are people who did not visit any page for more than over a month or perhaps ever. We also have our inactive users, so people who did not perform an action ever. And again, it shows you the number here. We have our engaged users, and all of the information is dynamic and will show you exactly how many users you have in each category. So for our purposes, let's go ahead and target everyone. And now we can pick a channel. So we have a wide variety of ways to actually pick a channel. So for example, we can send a mobile notification, a desktop notification, an email. We can actually distribute it through Smart Distributor, which will distribute the campaign based upon when the users are most active. So for example, if we distribute a campaign while users are offline, it will target them in other ways where we know that we can better reach them. We can also target through an in-app message in SharePoint, and we can customize that in a number of ways. So for example, we can select a pop-up, a full screen, a header. We can focus it on the left side, as well as a yellow note or a hotspot. So let's select a pop-up. And now we'll move on to the text in design. And I think this is really an effective way to really target people in SharePoint. So asking them, really for their feedback to really understand. So we can also customize this text if we feel that these pre-templated campaigns don't match our goals. But for our purposes, we'll keep this text, or maybe we can actually change it to say SharePoint migration feedback, or perhaps whatever your portal may be called. And then we can ask them, do you have any So we ask them if they have any feedback on the new SharePoint portal, if they think anything is missing. We can also alter the message type, so we can select whether it will be a pop-up where the user must interact or close the message, as well as a user can ignore the message, but for our purposes we would like to make the user interact with this message. We can select the frequency as well, also selecting any kind of color that we'd like. We can select a redirect page. We can even have a call to action, so we can redirect them to a specific site. We can put a button, a rating, so if we want to see the rating of the new portal, collecting any kind of email, or even selecting an open question. All of these things are possible with CardioLog Engage. So there's really a lot of ways that you can customize this and really collect that feedback from your users in any way that is comfortable for you. And finally, we can go ahead and trigger the request. So we can send it immediately. As soon as we select immediately, the campaign will start. We can also schedule it. We can set up a specific date and time to run the campaign by. We can set up a trigger to run the campaign based on users' behavior, as well as a web request or using smart timing that I mentioned before. So let's select immediately. And finally, we can just see a nice summary here, and we can select launch. And here we can actually see some insights on how our campaign is performing. So here we can see the total audience, as well as how many users were reached in this campaign, how many of them engaged with the campaign, and how many completions we had as well. So that's just a little bit about how you can take action to target your users during a migration process. And once you have it in place, the opportunities are really endless. And you can communicate announcements, you can trigger alerts, you can add links, all within a matter of minutes. And this is particularly useful, especially as we're talking about migration today, because even with site administrators, it can really allow them to broadcast information, redirect users to the portal, or collect information on how the user experience is going for them. So I'm going to go back to our reports and just focus in on a few other reports. And this is our last phase of our migration process, so our after phase. And we're going to use this adoption overview report to understand this phase a little bit better. So during the migration process, you can generate a usage trend report to go in and see how the usage from Farm A, or perhaps SharePoint 2013, is comparing against a usage trend report to Farm B. So perhaps that can be SharePoint Online. So again, migrating from 2013 to SharePoint Online and really understanding what the usage trends look like across both farms and tenants. And you can easily compare trends for even a site that you've migrated, for example, so perhaps the HR site, and see if users from the HR department are still using the old version or if they've successfully migrated even to the new version. So how can you do that? So here you actually see your portal tree structure here, and you can drill down very specifically into the metrics. So for example, again, as I mentioned, you have your SharePoint 2013 portal as well as your SharePoint Online tenant. So if you'd like to see information only for your SharePoint Online tenant, you can simply select it here. And all of the information will update according to that, and you can actually drill down within SharePoint Online as well to see what usage looks like in your community sites, as well as even further into your documents or your lists, your subsites, your forms, and so forth. So for example, if we select SharePoint Online and we want to see specific news sites, perhaps we're publishing news through a very specific list, then again, all of that information is dynamic and will show you what usage looks like and how it breaks down, whether you're talking about your content, your adoption, or how people are searching within this category. And here we have our adoption widget, which shows our unique users and groups and attributes. And here you can actually see the departments within your users and groups and actually hover over them as I'm doing here. And you can actually see the number of visits per user. So for example, we see that the marketing department has 75 active users. Their average duration in minutes is around 7.4, and their average depth of visit is around 4 pages. And you can see the departments that have a little bit less action as well. So these are really the departments that are considered the laggers. And this is, again, really a place that you can take action. You can give these laggers more training and really help these groups that are less active in SharePoint and maybe less active in the new portal and get them to really adapt to the new environment and help them to be more productive. So that's a great way to use this information to really understand whether to allocate these resources. So again, when talking about training, maybe you don't want to allocate training across all of the groups, but you want to allocate training only to the lagging groups. Or for example, if you'd like to drill down within these groups, you can simply click the drill down, and the marketing department looks like it's doing pretty well, it's pretty active. But we can also drill down into the marketing department, and here we see all of our individual users within the marketing department. And all of this information is provided because we have pulled this information through our APIs, through our user attributes. So we can see our users' information names. In other reports that go a little bit more in depth, we can see things like their title, their position in the company, as well as their office location. And again, we can see here that maybe we have some of these top users within the marketing department, and we also have some laggers as well. So perhaps we can really better use those. Training can be quite expensive. Let's be clear about that. So we can only train those users within the marketing department who are really lagging versus kind of taking this blanket approach and training everyone as a whole. So that's really a great way to, understand what your adoption looks like. You can also focus in on a particular group, and instead of drilling down, you can select it. And then you can see that all the information is dynamic across the report and shows all of the usage information for that particular group. So for example, when we showed you our content table earlier with our page views and our inactive content, we can actually open this report up now and see that all of this content here reflects only content that the marketing group interacted with. We can use the same logic, for example, if we'd like to target a specific user. So here you can select Julie Gilbertson. Now all of this information filters only for Julie, and we can open up this content table here and really see that this is all of the content that she specifically interacted with as well. So I'm going to jump into our last category within our adoption, and that is search. So this is actually considered part of our usability category, and specifically search optimization. And usability is something that's really important to be aware of if you're trying to improve adoption and engagement. especially in that last step of your SharePoint migration. So enhancing the user experience in the portal is really crucial if you want to improve adoption. If the portal is easy to use and search works well and navigation is simple and users are actually able to find the things that they're looking for, then this helps to improve adoption. On the other hand, low adoption and low engagement can be a symptom of inefficient search, a lack of relevant content, poor navigation pathways, and much more. So when these sorts of problems occur in the portal, users become frustrated and they don't feel that the portal is useful or even valuable to them. Instead, they really tend to avoid using the portal as a whole. So search is really one of those most important elements when it comes to usability. A lot of users use search as their preferred method of getting around the portal and finding the content that they need. So if search isn't working well for them, it's going to be really difficult to use the portal productively. On a positive note, search is something that can be very easily optimized if we're measuring the right metrics, and although this does require constant and consistent monitoring and maintenance, it is something that can continuously be worked on and be optimized. So here's a bar graph, and we can see our top search phrases were what they were across the portal or even on a specific site. And already this gives us a lot of insight into what our users are actually looking for and what's really important for them. So if I click at the top here, for example, on benefits, I can see how many times the search phrase was searched, how many unique users actually searched for this phrase. And already this can help me understand how popular a search term item is. So if we see a lot of users using search for a specific app or a link or a document, we can save them the hassle and time by simply adding this to a more visible location. So again, a home page or a navigation menu. We can also see the average number of results here that were returned when searching for this phrase. So if the number was really low, fortunately for us here it says 100, so that's a really great number. But for example, if this number were very low, it could be that there's just not enough relevant content around the search term, in which case we'll need to add that content. Or it may be that the content is actually there, but there are some permission issues, or that the search schema may need to be optimized, or perhaps we need to add more search queries. We can also see our average search result position. This is the average position of the results that were clicked on from search result pages. And so, on average, did users click on the first result, the second result, or the 10th result? In this example, users clicked on the result, meaning that they had to go through 9 or 10 results before actually finding the relevant content. So that's something that we'd want to improve, and we can do that by really easily checking which search results users did actually click on and then pushing them up in the search results page. And finally here we can see the percentage of searches that led to a click on a search result. And this is a really important metric we want to understand if we want to understand how well the search is performing in general or for a specific search phrase. Of course, if a user searches for something and then doesn't click on any result, it's most likely because they didn't find the relevant results. So in this example, more than 50% of the users who searched this term didn't click on any results. Here we can see it's 51.9%. So more than 50, or a little less than 50% actually, didn't click on any result. So presumably, they weren't able to find anything relevant. Instead, they need to actually change their search phrase or try to find the relevant information in a different way. So that's all the time that we have for today. If anyone has any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat or the question box now. I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have, and I'd also like to mention that we have a trial of CardioLog Analytics SaaS. You can register for that trial simply by going to our website, so www.interlock.com. You can also send me a chat here, and I'll be happy to send you some more information on it as well. You can tweet us at @CardioLog. You can also join our readers at our blog, so at blog.interlock.com. And if you'd like to contact us for any further information, you can contact us at info@interlock.com. And I'll give you guys just a few more seconds to enter in any questions that you may have. And if I don't get to your question today, I'll be happy to have someone from our team send you any answers that we have to your questions as well. Okay, so I have one question from Joseph who's asking, how does CardioLog Analytics actually collect the data? So this is a really great question. So this is done through two main ways of collecting the data. First, we have a JavaScript tracking code that's implemented on each page of the SharePoint environment, so page tagging, or it can be on any site collection that you'd like to track. We also pull information through our APIs, like I mentioned, so we can pull really vital information, including all of the portal tree structure, as well as any content, user attributes, groups, teams, that kind of thing as well. I have another question coming from Abigail, who's asking, how does CardioLog Analytics differ from the traditional out-of-the-box usage reports that you can find that come with SharePoint? So the easiest way, I think, to tackle this question is that I can send you a breakdown of the numerous reports offered by CardioLog versus the kind of basic out-of-the-box reports offered from Microsoft. And beyond reporting, as I showed you, CardioLog also offers these collaboration and engagement tools that really help you to take it one step further. So I'll be happy to share that link with you as well as anyone else who's interested. The other thing that I want to mention is that Microsoft came out with the Office 365 Adoption Content Pack back in July, and we did have a session where we compared the two tools. And although the content pack, is great for showing a few items in terms of kind of very nice overview reports and really overview usage within the greater Office 365 platform as well as in SharePoint, it doesn't really allow you to drill down into those reports. So you may see that you have these problem areas within these overview reports, but you're basically stuck at that point. There's nothing that you can really do. You can't drill down into these problematic areas and really try to understand where the problems lie, and also they don't really provide you with a tool to take action. So that's really where we see the major differentiation. But again, I'll be happy to send you some information as well if you'd like to see for yourself. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that we have for today and all of the time that we have for today. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you'd like to know any more information about CardioLog Analytics. If you'd like to know any more information about analytics for SharePoint in general, we have lots of resources on our website. We have ebooks, we have some white papers, as well as some nice blog posts that we continuously update. So feel free to check it out. And thanks so much for joining, everyone. Have a great day.